The spacecraft glided silently through Earth's atmosphere, its sleek metallic surface reflecting the pale blue sky. Inside, Yuna Kim adjusted her translation device, her fingers trembling slightly with anticipation. This was her first major research mission to the most enigmatic planet in the known galaxy, humans, a species that had confounded every known galactic civilization for decades. Her people had watched, studied, and collected data from a distance, but direct interaction was always complicated. The Galactic Research Consortium had chosen her specifically because of her unique ability to remain detached and analytical. The landing was smooth. Too smooth. Yuna remembered the countless reports she had read about human unpredictability. Nothing about this species ever followed expected patterns. As the ship's doors opened, she took her first breath of Earth's atmosphere, a mixture of organic compounds, industrial emissions, and something else she couldn't quite define. Jae-sung Park waited at the designated meeting point. He was typical of human research subjects, mid-30s, athletic build, wearing casual clothing that seemed both functional and randomly selected. His eyes held a spark of curiosity that made Yuna uncomfortable. Humans always looked like they knew something she didn't. "Welcome to Earth," he said, his smile revealing perfectly aligned teeth. Yuna had studied human communication protocols extensively. A smile could mean friendship, mockery, or a prelude to conflict. With humans, it was always challenging to determine which. The research site was located in a mountainous region with multiple environmental challenges. Jae-sung had been selected as her primary guide and interaction subject, someone who understood both the scientific requirements and the local terrain. "We'll start with basic observation," Yuna explained, her translator converting her native language into perfect English. "I'm interested in understanding human recreational activities." Jae-sung laughed. It was a sound that seemed to bounce off the mountain rocks, full of unexpected energy. "Recreational activities? You're in for a wild ride." Within hours, Yuna witnessed something that would challenge everything she understood about survival. Humans were deliberately placing themselves in dangerous situations. A group of young individuals were preparing for something called rock climbing, an activity that involved scaling vertical stone surfaces with minimal protection. Her initial research logs were filled with confusion. Why would an intelligent species voluntarily risk their physical safety for what appeared to be momentary excitement? One human nearly slipped, catching himself at the last moment. Instead of showing fear, he laughed, as if near death was something to be celebrated. Jae-sung noticed her bewilderment. "We don't see it as risking death," he explained. "We see it as experiencing life." That statement alone would require months of analysis. Experience life by potentially ending it. The contradiction was mind-boggling. As evening approached, the research site transformed. Campfires were lit, stories were shared, and a sense of camaraderie emerged that transcended any scientific understanding Yuna possessed. These humans weren't just surviving, they were celebrating their existence in the most unpredictable manner possible. Her scanning devices recorded everything: heart rates during risky activities, chemical changes in their biological systems, verbal and nonverbal communication patterns. But no device could truly capture the essence of what she was witnessing. Humans didn't just interact with their environment, they challenged it. They didn't accept limitations, they saw them as opportunities for growth. Each movement, each decision seemed to challenge the very concept of rational behavior. As night fell and the mountain winds carried sounds of distant laughter and music, Yuna realized her initial research hypothesis would need complete reconstruction. These weren't just recreational activities. This was a profound expression of a species' spirit. Her first day of research had produced more questions than answers. And for the first time in her professional career, Yuna found herself genuinely excited about the unknown. The mountains stood as silent witnesses to this remarkable beginning, a human and an alien, united by curiosity, about to unravel a mystery that would potentially change galactic understanding forever. The morning light crept over the mountain range, casting long shadows across the research camp. Yuna sat outside her observation tent, her advanced recording devices meticulously capturing every detail of human behavior. Jae-sung approached carrying 2 steaming cups of a dark liquid humans called coffee. "Today," he said with a mischievous grin, "you'll see what human recreation really means." The day began with an activity called mountain biking. Yuna watched in absolute confusion as humans deliberately rode bicycles down steep, rocky terrain. Each bump, each potential moment of disaster seemed to bring them more excitement. One rider fell, rolled, and then stood up laughing. This wasn't an injury response, this was celebration. "Why do you purposely create situations of potential harm?" Yuna asked, her translator converting her bewilderment into precise English. Jae-sung explained something that would become a fundamental breakthrough in her research. "We don't see it as harm. We see it as pushing our limits." The concept was completely alien to her. In her civilization, limits were respected, carefully measured, and never challenged. Humans seemed to view limits as something to be destroyed. By midday, they had moved to a different location, a place called an adventure park. Here, humans engaged in activities that defied all logical understanding. Zip lines stretched between tall structures. People willingly attached themselves to thin cables and launched themselves across massive heights. One particular moment caught Yuna's attention. A young woman who appeared to be terrified of heights deliberately chose to participate in a challenging zip line course. When she completed it, her scream was not of terror, but of pure, unbridled joy. "That's impossible," Yuna muttered, reviewing her biological readings. The human's stress hormones spiked during the activity, but were immediately replaced by chemicals associated with extreme happiness. Jae-sung sat beside her, explaining the human concept of adrenaline. It was more than just a biological response. It was a form of emotional currency. Humans collected experiences like treasures, each risky moment adding value to their existence. The afternoon brought even more surprising discoveries. A group of humans engaged in something called parkour, an activity that involved running through urban environments, jumping between buildings, scaling walls, and creating movement paths that seemed completely impractical. "This looks like inefficient transportation," Yuna observed. Jae-sung laughed. "It's not about getting somewhere. It's about how you get there." Each activity challenged her understanding of survival. These weren't just recreational activities. They were a complex language of human experience. Risk was not something to be avoided. It was something to be embraced. As evening approached, Yuna reviewed her initial data. Her previous research suggested humans were irrational. Now she was beginning to see a different narrative. These were not random acts of potential self-destruction. These were calculated explorations of human potential. The mountain camp became a living laboratory. Humans shared stories around the campfire, each tale more incredible than the last. They spoke of mountains climbed, oceans crossed, challenges overcome. Each story was a testament to something deeper than mere survival. Jae-sung noticed her intense observation. "We don't just live," he said quietly. "We experience." That single statement would become the cornerstone of her research. Humans didn't see life as a linear path to be carefully navigated. They saw it as a complex, three-dimensional space to be explored, challenged, and celebrated. As night fell, Yuna updated her research logs. Her initial hypothesis was completely wrong. Humans weren't a species to be studied through traditional, scientific methods. They were a complex, dynamic civilization that defied standard categorization. The mountains around them seemed to whisper their own understanding, a silent acknowledgement of a species that refused to be confined by expectations. Yuna looked up at the star-filled sky, realizing her mission had transformed. She was no longer just an observer. She was a witness to something extraordinary, a species that had turned survival into an art form and risk into a language of existence. The morning air was crisp and heavy with anticipation. Yuna stood at the edge of a tall platform, her body trembling in ways she had never experienced before. Jae-sung stood beside her, a reassuring presence that seemed both familiar and completely alien. Bungee jumping, he explained, is about conquering your own fear. Her research had brought her to this moment. Weeks of observing human recreational activities had led to this ultimate test. The cord attached to her body looked impossibly thin. Beneath her, a deep canyon stretched out, promising a confrontation with gravity itself. "I don't understand why humans do this," Yuna muttered, her voice barely a whisper. Jae-sung smiled. "Sometimes understanding comes from experiencing." The platform felt different from her research calculations. Numbers and data were safe. This moment was raw, unpredictable. Her scientific training screamed against this illogical action. Every rational part of her brain suggested this was a mistake. But something else was growing inside her, a tiny spark of curiosity that her scientific training could not suppress. 3, Jae-sung began counting. 2, 1. The moment of release was nothing like she had anticipated. Gravity became more than a scientific concept. It became a living, breathing experience. The world blurred. Wind rushed past her ears. Her body felt both terrified and incredibly alive. For those few seconds of free fall, Yuna understood something profound about human existence. This wasn't about survival. This was about truly living. When the cord caught her, pulling her back from the potential embrace of destruction, she realized something had changed inside her. Her perception of risk, of experience, of existence itself had fundamentally transformed. Back at the research camp, her colleagues would never understand. The Galactic Research Consortium collected data. They didn't experience. They observed, from a safe distance. But humans, they lived differently. That evening, around the campfire, Yuna was different. Her observations were no longer clinical. They were personal. She spoke about her experience with a passion that surprised even herself. Jae-sung watched her transformation with quiet understanding. "Now you're beginning to see," he said softly. Her research logs that night were unlike anything she had previously written. Words like emotion and experience replaced clinical terminology. She was documenting not just an activity, but a profound human philosophy. The mountain landscape seemed to witness her transformation. Rocks that had seemed silent before now appeared to hold stories. The wind carried whispers of countless human adventures. Everything looked different. Yuna realized that her mission had changed. She was no longer just studying a species. She was understanding a way of living that her own civilization had never comprehended. Her biological readings that night were fascinating. Her stress hormones had changed. Her brain chemistry showed patterns of excitement and growth that contradicted every previous scientific model she had studied. "Humans don't just survive," she wrote in her personal log. "They transform through experience." The campfire crackled, casting dancing shadows. Jae-sung sat nearby, watching her write. He understood something fundamental was happening. An alien researcher was becoming something more than an observer. As midnight approached, Yuna looked up at the star-filled sky. The universe suddenly seemed larger, more mysterious. Her understanding of exploration had been limited to geographical discoveries. Humans had shown her that the greatest exploration was internal. Her transformation was not just about understanding humans. It was about understanding herself. The mountains stood as silent witnesses to this remarkable moment, a researcher who had stepped beyond observation into experience. Something rare and beautiful was happening. A bridge was being built between two different ways of understanding existence. Yuna smiled. For the first time in her professional career, she was truly alive. The research vessel hummed with tension as Yuna presented her findings to the Galactic Research Consortium. Holographic screens displayed images of human activities. Rock, climbing, bungee jumping, extreme sports. Each frame challenging everything the consortium believed about intelligent species. Her lead researcher, Dr. Min-Ho Lee, looked skeptical. "You're suggesting that humans are advanced because they voluntarily put themselves in dangerous situations?" Yuna's confidence had transformed. No longer the hesitant researcher, she stood firm. Not just dangerous situations, calculated risk-taking that demonstrates extraordinary cognitive flexibility. The presentation revealed something unprecedented. Humans weren't just surviving, they were deliberately creating scenarios that pushed their biological and psychological limits. Each activity was a complex language of human potential. Her research showed that human recreational activities were more than simple leisure. They were sophisticated evolutionary mechanisms. When humans engaged in extreme activities, their brain chemistry underwent remarkable transformations. Stress became a tool for growth, not just a survival response. Look at these neurological patterns, she explained, pointing to complex brain scans. When humans face potential danger, they don't freeze. They adapt. They learn. They grow, the consortium members whispered among themselves. This was more than a research presentation. This was a fundamental challenge to their understanding of intelligent life. Jae-sung, who had accompanied her, stood quietly in the background. His presence was a living testament to the research. He represented the human spirit they were trying to understand. Dr. Lee zoomed into a particular brain scan. These neural connections, they're developing in real time during high-stress activities. It's like their brains are actively rewriting themselves during moments of challenge. The implications were massive. If humans could adapt so quickly, so efficiently, what did that mean for interstellar exploration? What did that mean for survival in unknown environments? Yuna's research suggested that humans weren't just another species to be categorized. They were a potential template for evolutionary adaptation. Their approach to risk wasn't recklessness. It was a sophisticated survival mechanism. Imagine, she told the consortium, a species that doesn't just survive in new environments, but actively transforms to master them. The room fell silent. Her colleagues understood the revolutionary nature of her findings. Humans weren't just another data point. They were a potential key to understanding adaptive intelligence. Her presentation included video evidence of human activities, a rock climber falling and immediately strategizing recovery, a skydiver adjusting mid-fall, parkour experts transforming urban landscapes into complex movement puzzles. They don't see limitations, Yuna explained. They see opportunities for growth. The research had broader implications for galactic diplomacy. Humans weren't just another species to be studied, they were potential partners, collaborators in understanding the complex nature of intelligent life. Dr. Lee asked the critical question, can this approach be replicated? Can other species learn from human adaptability? Yuna's answer was carefully measured. Not by copying, by understanding the underlying philosophy. Humans see challenge as a pathway to growth, not a barrier. The presentation concluded with a series of recommendations. Establish deeper diplomatic connections. Create collaborative research programs. Understand human psychology not as an anomaly, but as a potential evolutionary model. Jae-sung smiled from the back of the room. He knew something profound was happening. An entire galactic civilization was beginning to understand his species. As the holographic screens faded, the consortium members looked stunned. They had entered expecting a standard research presentation. They were leaving with a completely transformed understanding of intelligent life. Yuna's research was more than a scientific document. It was a bridge between civilizations, a testament to the power of understanding, of seeing beyond established boundaries. The universe they now understood was far more complex and beautiful than they had ever imagined, and humans, with their extraordinary capacity for adaptation and growth, were at the forefront of this cosmic journey. 5 years had passed since Yuna's groundbreaking research. The world looked different now. Humans and alien researchers worked side by side, exploring the complex language of survival and experience. Jae-sung watched her from across the research center. She was no longer just an alien researcher. She had become a bridge between civilizations. The diplomatic conference was unlike any previous gathering. Representatives from multiple planetary systems sat together, listening to Yuna explain the human concept of collective growth. Her translation device captured not just words, but the essence of human understanding. Survival is not about avoiding risk, she explained. It's about transforming through challenge. Her journey had been remarkable. From a clinical observer to a passionate advocate, Yuna had become something entirely new. She represented a new kind of diplomatic understanding, one built on experiencing, not just studying. The research center buzzed with energy. Holographic displays showed human activities from around the world. Rock climbers scaling impossible heights. Scientists pushing technological boundaries. Explorers mapping unknown territories. Each image told a story of human potential. Jae Sung approached her during a break. "You've changed everything," he said quietly. Yuna remembered her first day on Earth. The fear, the confusion, the complete misunderstanding of human nature. Now she saw something profound. Humans weren't just a species. They were a philosophy of existence. The conference discussed practical implications. How could other civilizations learn from human adaptability? How could they understand this unique approach to challenge and growth? Her recommendations were revolutionary. Create educational programs that valued experience over pure knowledge. Design exploration strategies that embraced uncertainty. Develop communication methods that saw challenge as an opportunity. Representatives from different planets listened intently. Some looked skeptical. Others seemed inspired. A Martian diplomat asked the critical question, "How can we teach this approach?" Yuna smiled. "You can't teach it, you can only experience it." Her research had uncovered something fundamental. Human potential wasn't about physical capabilities. It was about a mindset, a way of seeing the world that transformed challenges into opportunities. The conference hall felt different. Something was shifting in the collective understanding of intelligent life. Jae Sung watched her present, remembering their first interactions. She had transformed from an observer to a participant, from an alien researcher to a bridge between worlds. The holographic displays showed more than just human activities. They showed a philosophy of existence. Each image represented a moment of potential transformation. As the conference concluded, something unexpected happened. Representatives from multiple planets began sharing their own stories of challenge and growth. The human approach was becoming a universal language. Yuna realized her research had become more than a scientific document. It was a new way of understanding intelligence, of seeing potential in uncertainty. The research center felt like a living organism. Humans and alien researchers worked together, sharing experiences, challenging assumptions, growing together. Jae Sung approached her as the conference ended. "You've done something extraordinary," he said. Yuna looked out the window. The world seemed larger, more complex, more beautiful than ever before. Her journey had been about more than research. It had been about understanding the profound complexity of existence, about seeing potential where others saw only limitation. The sun set outside, casting long shadows across the research center. Humans and alien researchers continued their work, a testament to the power of understanding, of experiencing, of growing. Together, something remarkable was happening. A new chapter in galactic understanding was being written, and at the center of it all was Yun-Ah, no longer just a researcher, but a bridge between worlds, between ways of seeing, between possibilities. The universe watched and waited and grew.